Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Melanie Dizon. I'm the Director of Education for the Davis Phinney Foundation, and I am here today with Kat. Hello, Kat. And Amy. Hi, Amy.
Hi.
Kevin. Hi, Kevin.
Hey, everyone.
And Heather. How are you, Heather?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Great. So these are 4 of our 7-member council. Our 7-member Young Onset Parkinson's Disease Council. Unfortunately, 3 of our members had something come up and they're not able to be here today, but they plan on being here next month. Which reminds me to tell you that this is an ongoing series. Every month, we're going to be talking about different issues that everybody in this council has identified as important issues for people who have young onset. We're going to be getting into today's topic in just a minute, but right now I just want to do a real quick check for technology for those of you who are maybe new to Zoom today. So if you look up on the right-hand side of the right corner of your Zoom dashboard, you will see something that says speaker view and gallery view. If you click gallery view, then you will see all 5 of us at the same time. If you have speaker view showing, then you just see my big head right now. And it's a little more pleasant to see all 5 people, but you get to decide how you want to do it. Sometimes it's just nice to have it as a conversation. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to be taking your questions and you'll be able to communicate with me through chat. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, you will see an icon that says chat. If you click that, on the right-hand side, a chat box will open. And on the bottom of that, you'll see a little blue button with an arrow that probably says maybe all panelists or host and all panelists, and then one that says all panelists and attendees. If you want to send a message just to me or the panelist in private, you can do that. If you want to send a message that everybody will see, everybody who's on this today will see, then you want to make sure you select all attendees. This is the place where I'm going to be monitoring questions and making sure that I see the questions that I can then ask to the panel. So be sure to type your questions in there. There's probably a raise hand function, but there's no need to use the raise hand function today because we can't see you and we can't hear you. So it's best if you just typed everything in the chat. Okay, I think that's it. Today, the topic is sex, love, dating, and Parkinson's. And our council lead for today is Heather Kennedy. She's gonna kind of man this discussion, and I'm gonna pop in when there are questions in the chat and when I see something or hear something that I think we need to talk about. So Heather, take it away.
We have been interrupted in our lives. Those of you with YOPD, those of you who signed up for this, I'm guessing that you have an interest in love and Parkinson's and all the goodies that go with it. We all deserve pleasure. It's our birthright. We all deserve love. And we give what we get. But with Parkinson's, I find, and I'm only going to speak for myself on this one part, that it is difficult to be the partner that I want to be when I am in chronic pain. So it's hard to talk about all of this without mentioning the fact that most of us here are in chronic pain. And you might actually argue that being alive is a chronic pain. But yeah, Kevin, it's nice of you to join us from the dock of the bay. I really enjoy your scene. I love this. The reason why we wanted to have this discussion and not, have somebody lecture is because none of us have the answers. We don't know what's going to happen next. That's the mystical beauty, the juiciness, the amazingness of love. And that is the partnership that we all want. We all want that love bazaar, like Sheila E. says. We all want that big love. We want that depth of human connection, those intimacies that go far beyond just sexual connection. So we're here today to sort of explore these topics with as much time as we have, and maybe even draw no conclusions, but hopefully you'll walk away with something that will get you thinking and maybe start a discussion with your partners. That's our hope for today. So I'm not sure how you guys would like to start off, but I can just ask a couple of questions. What do you think?
Sure.
Does that work?
Yeah.
I was wondering, for those of you who are have been diagnosed for a while, so this is not for the newly diagnosed, how do you find your relationships in general changing through Parkinson's? It's an open-ended question. You can look at it through a friendship lens or a partnership lens, intimate partner lens, however you feel you want to start off with that. How have they changed?
I'll start.
Sounds good.
I think even without Parkinson's, relationships always do change. You know, the way that you are with other people in your 20s versus your 30s versus 40s and 50s all change, right?
Mhm.
And so then you overlay the Parkinson's piece on it, which is actually an amplifier of need in many ways. So I think that what we're getting is maybe an early acceleration of some of the complexities of managing relationships at a period in time when certain things change in our lives, right? Heather, you mentioned pain, but there are other things that involve you're tired. You may not be able to articulate certain things, or your confidence may be a little bit shot. So there's certain things that I think that Parkinson's adds complexity to relationships. So I don't know if I'm just pontificating or other panel members feel the same way.
It is complex.
Yeah, I just want to jump in on that as well, in the sense that this is sort of my mantra, is that not everything is due to Parkinson's. And so for those of you who are newly diagnosed and are afraid, life goes on and relationships will be what they will be. And if they're good relationships, they will continue to be good in different ways, and you can work on that. And if they're troubled, they will probably continue to be troubled in that way as well. But it's not always necessarily due to Parkinson's.
Right.
Good point. You mean you just took away all my excuses? Parkinson. It used to be
It is.
teenagers. Now it's
Yeah.
Parkinson.
Yeah, we call it playing the PD card in my house.
Yeah. Mhm.
Comes in handy.
So I'd like to echo a lot of what everybody said. I think that relationships are complex, and I think that adding chronic illness and pain and lots of unknowns and possibly leaving jobs and self-identity and how we feel about ourselves makes it that much more complex when we're talking about intimacy and partnership. And I think I have been married to my wonderful husband for 30 years. We were 12 when we met. No, but
I like you. You like me. No. Remember those notes?
yeah, but it does change, and it changes, like Kevin said, it's different than it was in our 20s now that we're in our middle age, and it changes. And I think the key to relationships, period, is communication. And I think communication is different with Parkinson's. I think our thoughts are different. I think our expressions can be different. Our reactions can be different. And so I think it's really important to continue the communication, even around things like sexual health and intimacy. And those are hard things sometimes to talk about, but I think it's really important that you're able to talk about it. So that's my 2 cents.
You just reminded me, Kat, of probably the most important thing that I've discovered since my diagnosis. It's when I got real, things changed. When I got real, I had the opportunity to open up to true love. And when I tried to hide my symptoms or mask them, first of all, your partner's going to be onto you right away. I mean, let's just start there. If your partner's close enough to you to notice and to pay attention, they're going to know. So there's no place to hide. It reminds me of a talk Pema Chodron once gave about, the places that scare you was the talk, but it was really about having no place to hide. There's no place to run. There's no mask for this. You can't pretend you don't have Parkinson's, because even if you're asymptomatic at first, it's a progressive degenerative condition. Even the best of us who are working out, a lot in workouts help you feel more, juicy and sexy and cool. And you're keeping your youth and you're mobile and everything. It's still going to progress no matter what we do. So knowing that and being able to communicate with the partnership that we have, or the friends, or whoever it is that we're, the intimacies that we do have, is vital. It has changed when did it switch for you, Kevin? I just want to ask you, like, what were some times when you can think of a time when you actually let your partner know, hey, I'm really failing at this. It's hard for me to say that because I want to be like, you know, the guy. I want to be in control here, in charge, but I'm really failing at this one thing, like, you know, maybe like your movement or something changed. How did you communicate that to your partner at the time?
Well, you know, for me, I think I played the charade in the early days of my Parkinson's. You know, first of all, it really wasn't that bad at the beginning. And so I tried to pretend to be all strong, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I failed to do was really communicate what my needs were as a partner. So my original marriage ended in divorce during the period of Parkinson, that Parkinson's period. And I think a lot of it was because I was untrue to myself and I wasn't true to them as a partner as well. So that was probably my first indication of being honest in the communication piece. It takes two to tango in that world, right? And I can't, Parkinson's people as a whole, we're not easy people to get along with. People got to read our minds every minute of the day, and it vacillates and it changes.
Yes.
So when you add that complexity, that overlay into the relationship, I mean, we as the Parkinson's patients also have to take ownership. We cannot blame it on the partner. Although I will say that, you know, divorce in my situation was probably a very liberating and freeing thing for me. I go to these meetings and I see other married couples, and I'm just so happy for them because they seem to have the spiritual partner for life. I actually didn't have that, you know. And I think there may be more of us actually that are out there. The other thing that I'll say now, and then I'll shut up and let other people talk, is that when people think about dopamine deficiency, they think about movement disorders, and they're starting to also think about non-motor symptoms related to dopamine deficiency. But one of the other things that's really, really important is dopamine is also the pleasure-seeking hormone in our body. And relationships come from that. And so I think there's this interplay that's really not really well understood or discussed, is how does that dopamine deficiency affect you and the people around you, right?
And to piggyback that, there may be some implications for serotonin levels also. Right. And treatments for serotonin deficiencies also have some complicity in terms of arousal and stimulation and sure. Pleasure. And so there's definitely an emotional aspect, but caused by a physiologic aspect, right? So it can impact both the way we might respond sexually and the way we may or may not be able to enjoy sex too. There, we'll just go there.
I mean, I don't know if others of you on the panel have ever been on a dopamine agonist.
Yeah.
But I mean, listen, I crawled out of my skin and I had more fun and I got in more danger because of those, you know, medications on there. I mean, I will admit that, right? So you can see quickly how that interplay between serotonin and norepinephrine and dopamine all play into our personal needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it becomes more complicated when you have a deficiency that you're trying to correct or fix, because it can make some of our reactions different than they used to be. And that can be confusing for partners. Sure. And also scary to talk about, I think. So that's why we're here.
Amy, did you have anything to add about that dopamine part?
I am 5 years in. I was diagnosed 5 years ago. I consider myself to still be in that sort of very highly manageable stage. And I tend to think about these things as I think about everything. And that is that everything feels so overwhelming everything, and everything is connected to everything else when I think about my life with Parkinson's. And this is going to sound a little woo, I guess, but one thing that really helps me is to do the thing that's really trendy right now, that in personal development, which is every morning I get up and I sort through what I'm trying to think about. And I ask myself questions. It's sort of like a self-coaching. And that helps me a lot figure out how I'm going to be that day and how I'm going to react to things. And a lot of that is about relationships as well. And by thinking about it in advance, sort of what are my challenges going to be today and how am I going to address them proactively, that helps. It just does. And I recommend that to anybody because overwhelm with so many new things you have to think about now is something that you can really get in the weeds on. And we each have to find our own process to help us sort through all of the new experiences and the information and the emotions around all that.
Right. And I was just telling a friend, speaking of that when I go on a date, okay, for those of you who don't have partners, you'll enjoy this part. I have to think about, am I going to pee my pants on the date? Will I be shaking when I try to get my wallet out? How soon before I start telling them my problems? Like, let's say that you're on a dating website. Okay, so you go on, Bumble or Match or Tinder or whatever. Everybody's swiping left and right. And you've put up this beautiful picture where you're kind of like, hey, I'm sexy. Are you sexy? And I'm going to be sexy. And then they swipe on you. You meet them, and everyone's like, well, when do I tell them? Well, a few takeaways here. They're going to know something. So I would say right away. And you'll probably get ghosted, and do not take that personally. It's going to happen. People don't understand what Parkinson's is. They're going to be like, oh, you might feel like you're in the bargain bin. You are most certainly not. That's a lack of education and a lack of awareness. No. You have just as much right, and maybe even more so. And I'll tell you why I say more so. You have just as much right to have a relationship as anyone else. We've been humbled. Usually, I think we make pretty fantastic partners. We've been humble enough to not think that we're the best of everything or anything. We're humble enough to use inquiry, just like you mentioned, every morning or whenever we do that, to sort of, sort through and be very self-reflective, which makes us self-reflective for our partner, presumably. I wouldn't even be on here today without someone who helped me set this up. Let me borrow her computer, her phone, make the calls. I lost my phone and then it got disabled because someone had tried to use the passcode so many times. So I'm locked out of my phone today. I couldn't even get the Zoom link for this. There I was trying to be this, hot date or whatever. And I had to call this person and really be frantic and show my side of because Parkinson's comes with anxiety. It's hard to be sexy when you're anxious or pee in your pants. So my point is, Amy's right. We have to deal with this whole other thing. So if you're single and you're dating, have a complexity. But guess what the other good news is about that? It's going to weed out those people that weren't worth your time in the first place.
Right.
Yeah, Heather, I want to say something just real quick because I got a question beforehand. It just it broke my heart. I'd love to hear your response to it. But the person had emailed and said, I don't date. I just don't put myself out there because who would want to date me? Who would want to look in the future and have to take care of someone with Parkinson's? I would love for you to respond to that. Anybody, but.
That's a tough one.
I want to start with that. You mind if I take that? None of us know or are guaranteed anything tomorrow. And I hope that I get to live a long life with Parkinson's, but none of us are guaranteed that. And there's the bus factor that I talk about all the time. The bus factor. You can go out in the street and get hit by a bus if you stand too close. And that can happen to any of us. And my son says, just don't stand by the buses, which is good advice. But really none of us are guaranteed that. So I'm with Heather. If people are weeding you out, let them weed you out. Who knows? You may meet the love of your life and they might get diagnosed with cancer tomorrow. I don't wish that on anybody, but but we can't read the future. And so don't doom yourself to a future that you don't know, And none of us know. We only really have today. So if you want to date, get on there, look hot, you know, do a little zhuzh. As an old married woman, I'd love to see you all do that. That's just beautiful. I support it. So anyway, there we go.
Yeah. I once dated a woman, and we were sort of chatting, and she said, you know, in 10 years, you're going to be really disabled. And no one, she was a lot younger than I was. She said, you know, when I hit 50 and you're hitting 60, you know, you're going to be disabled, and no one's going to want to go after me as a 60-year-old woman. And I go, listen, no, I mean, it kind of really broke my heart, but that ended the relationship because that was not a relationship that was meant to work, right?
It hurts. It hurts to be told.
Yeah.
I had a friend say to me, a helpful friend, meaning to be helpful. She said, and I quote, you know, when you date, you're going to have to choose someone that's going to be your caregiver. And I looked at her like, excuse me? Because, you know, I used to pick people based upon, are they a good kisser? You know, things that matter. And
very
so
important.
When she's, yeah, right. So when she said this, I was very upset with her. And then I realized, oh, she doesn't know how that sounds to us. And so back to what Mel said, and you too, Kat, it's so important to know that we're not in control. So to pre-decide, like, who would want me? You have no idea. There are billions of people in the world. Do you know what everybody's thinking? I certainly don't. Keep it open. That. How do we keep it open? How do we
Yeah, I also think that people in this community at the Davis Phinney and at all the other organizations, like, we're kind of fun. And we have, right? And we have like really strong friendships with each other and bonds with each other. And we also know a lot of people. And so if you want to come to a community where there's no judgment and find your next date, I mean, just come on in, join us all at all of our different stuff.
I love to matchmake. So I can't, I'm not doing it officially, but you know, it is, I've met so many phenomenal people in this community. And
yeah.
And I know many actually that have found their partners in the community, or through family members and friends through the community. So yeah. My
occupational therapist says, who's also an ambassador, says that only really cool, interesting, nice, intelligent people get Parkinson's. And I think that she's right. I think she's right.
Of course, right?
We like her.
I remember when I got divorced, you know, a typical mom was trying to introduce me to other women again, right? It was like, Mom, get out of my life. Stay away. It was hilarious because she would lead by saying, so-and-so's available and they're nice, and you know, you've got your issues that are making you quite as open and desirable to all of the people. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, Mom, I'm actually more desirable than you realize.
And you know, I don't want to make light of the problems people have had with dopamine agonists. So please know that this is all in good jokingness here, but you know, dopamine agonists make me want to have uno mas. I want to stay out and dance all night.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not going to pull the ripcord. I need to bring somebody reasonable with me.
Yeah.
You know, what do you think of that, Kat?
I think checks and balances are really important in any relationship. And I will say that definitely has happened with me too. And I feel grateful that I've got my better half that helps keep me a little bit more even. But I think we need to be careful. And I think those of you that are out and dating need to be aware of those things and honest about them, both with yourself, with partners, and providers. So, yeah.
There's a couple of questions I'd love to kind of get through just while we're in the middle right here, and then we can go back to some other ideas. First of all, this is an interesting question for Heather, and well, anybody who's single, would anybody consider dating or marrying another person with Parkinson's?
Well, that's a good question. Have you ever heard the talk about how if two people are about to get into an accident and one person in the car is screaming, "Ah!" They both can't be screaming simultaneously? So I think it would be a personality thing more than a, hey, I have Parkinson's and you have Parkinson's and we get each other, because as we all know, if you've met one person with Parkinson's, you've met one person with Parkinson's. So we all have these different sort of approaches, right? But I would say that thing about the two people in the car screaming cannot be happening. So it's really depends on your personality. What do you think?
Kevin?
Yeah, I would not rule it out because that would be a person that would really, it's funny when you walk into a room, you know who the Parkinson's people are. There's an energy that bonds us, right? I just haven't really had the opportunity of dating anyone with Parkinson's, but I would certainly say that energy is there.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't rule it out, but just like anything, I like to be equal opportunity for all people, right?
So for Amy and Kat, I would love to know, I think that there are some people that, whether, they're young onset, but they're also newly diagnosed and they're dealing with that brand new information with their life partner, with their person. Like, what were those conversations like in the beginning, and what were some of the more challenging things, and how did you overcome them and become stronger? It sounds like both of you have figured out a way that your relationships are actually stronger than they were. So what were some of those early conversations and challenges you faced?
You want to start, Amy?
I was just going to ask you to start, but okay. I think you really have to know your partner, and I'm lucky that I have someone. I've been married for 22 years, and it's been like all relationships, and I was never challenged by an inability to disclose to him or to talk to him or any of my friends. I think there are some challenges in that you don't want to overburden your partner. And I think what's, among other challenges, and I think what's really important is to think of your life kind of like a wheel with spokes, so that you're not only relying on your partner, right? You have a lot of support systems and they all need to be part of the wheel to keep rolling. So I think it's really important to have a group of people who are not in that sphere of whatever it is you and your partner do together. And that balances out. You know what? These things are really in the way. That balances out. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, get rid of this. Your reliance on just one person. And so, yeah, we have, I think I told Mel before, I have a group of people who I call my bat phone, right? So that we can just pick up the phone whenever we want and talk about something that we just want to talk about outside of our own house, and it's really therapeutic, and that's good. And then I have another group of friends that are not related to Parkinson's at all, and I think that having many spokes is really important to keep your relationship with your partner strong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would echo that, Amy, for sure. That I think also not having tough conversations in the heat of the moment is really important. And I think giving each other permission to ask hard questions if you need answers. Is this too much for you? Am I driving you crazy? Am I or I tend not to share a lot of symptoms because I really don't want to complain, and I just don't want to focus on them. I mean, I can have a great day with a lot of symptoms, and I can have a rotten day with a lot of symptoms. But if he has concerns, we have an agreement that he can ask me directly if he's concerned, and I promise to give him a direct answer. On the flip side of that, I also don't want to be treated like something's wrong all the time. So when things are different, when my hands have a lot of dystonia, it doesn't mean that I don't want to to share intimate time, it means that things are just different. And so we need to talk about those things, even if they're hard. It's just different and evolving, just like anybody's relationship changes and evolves. So does it if you have Parkinson's. So.
We have people that want to talk about sex and sexual issues. So let's go for it. A couple of things that have been mentioned. Somebody said that their partner is sort of scared, reluctant to be physical with them because they're not as strong as they used to be. And so the partner is, you know,
Scared.
doesn't have the ability or mobility, let's say, that they had before. Another person's talking about erectile dysfunction. What are some of the things that are showing up in the bedroom that are Parkinson's, not just as a result of aging, but Parkinson's specific, that you think that we'd help out and address?
May I just mention the largest sexual organ here? So not my forehead, by the way. I do have the 5-finger forehead. But let's just talk about this for a moment. This is where the mind comes in, the fantasy, the discussions, the fun part, okay? There are sites specifically for people with disabilities that have all kinds of accoutrements you can buy, all kinds of things. And think about it. This is a fun time to play. Go out of your comfort zone a little bit when you start thinking about sex or sexual dysfunction. Don't get so caught up. It would be the equivalent of someone saying, I cannot reach orgasm. And they're really caught up in that. And that becomes the whole event. So you're with a partner and that's their whole thought process. Instead of, I have Parkinson's, or I can't do this with my body now. How about, what can we do? What would be kind of fun? Hey, let's explore this, that. Let's explore something different. And to kind of roll with it. Does it require some confidence in your body? Sure. But there are so many things you can do. Does anybody have some thoughts about how you can maybe put those things aside and be more playful? Sex is important. Pleasure is our birthright. We deserve to have sex with ourselves, with other people, with accoutrements if we like. I can post some links to sites that I'm referring to. I heard them on a podcast. So.
And also, it's not just for people with Parkinson's. As we age, and perimenopausal women, so bodies change over time. And so sexual dysfunction can come with age. It also can come with Parkinson's. It also can come with some of the medicines that we take to treat serotonin deficiency, all kinds of things. So many women will require clitoral stimulation to reach an orgasm. That's just fact. This is in my exam room. I talked about it all the time. So Parkinson's or no Parkinson's. So these are some of the things that Heather was talking about. There's all kinds of toys and things that can supplement your time if you desire and want to work at having an orgasm, and getting playful. But I like to say that often it's like an air traffic control panel to achieve orgasm. And there's all kinds of things that can cause pleasure along the way, but everything's got to be in the right place to get to that spot, especially for women. Before Parkinson's, I used to talk about an air traffic control panel for women, light switch on, off for men. So in terms of our brains, that's sometimes really how it works. So everything in air traffic control has to be going well, and the light switch has to be on for everybody to achieve orgasm out here. So it's complex, but intimacy is not just orgasm.
Right.
Intimacy is pleasure. Intimacy is being close. Intimacy, it may change how you position yourself in the bed. There's pillows, there's all kinds of things, or not the bed, the kitchen table, whatever, but use what you have. And because cramping happens more with Parkinson's, and having a good sense of humor about it is important too. So that's my little clinical take as a nurse practitioner. So Kevin.
Yeah, Mel, I think somebody asked a question specifically on erectile dysfunction, and since I'm one of the only men on this panel, I think Steve is on, right? I'll address that one. You know, I went through a period of my life when I thought, well, I'm going to have to move on to medications to try to supplement, you know, sexual performance. And so I got prescriptions and was shocked at the price of, like, you know, 3 Viagra, which is all they gave me. And I was like, well, that's my allocation for a month. That's all I get. But what I started to learn was actually, I actually didn't need it. You know, my girlfriend now, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I realized that, as what Heather was saying earlier, you know, I find myself not needing these agents of arousal, right? What is actually interesting is I actually think that maybe in some ways, you know, the maturation of the 20-year-old versus the 40-year-old, you know, in terms of sexual pleasure and lovemaking changes. It's not like, you know, when I was in my 20s and, you know, you could constantly go in, and it was one of those things, you know, climax takes longer, obviously, in my case, you know, as a male. But actually, I use that to my advantage. I'm more sensitive. We have more fun. We're more playful. We experiment with different things. And I'll tell you, there's no change in intensity. It just takes longer and more fun as part of all of that. But it takes a while to kind of get that confidence and realize that.
Yeah, I think one of the questions, well, a couple of care partners are on watching, and they are wondering how do I, like, broach this subject with my person with Parkinson's? How do I talk to them about it in a way that's not, you know, going to hurt them, or that's not going to make them uncomfortable or feel like they're failing, or you know, not performing? What are some things to say? How to start those conversations?
Play this podcast for them.
Right.
Ask the question, how are you feeling about our sex life? A really open-ended question. Are you happy with it? Are there things you'd like more of or less of? What do you think, Heather? You were going to jump in.
Well, I was going to say, to keep things fresh, you don't want to keep doing the same routine things. There's a funny joke, you know, that I put on that shirt, that I wanted that thing on Wednesday night, and it's Wednesday, it's, you know, it's business time. You know, that whole song about it's business time from the Flight of the Conchords.
Yeah.
You want to get out of those routines. You want to surprise yourself and your partner. And as luck would have it, Parkinson's is extremely unpredictable. So you can actually be a very passionate partner with that unpredictability. Use that disadvantage to your advantage and surprise your partner. I have been seeing someone who is a person who is so willing and open and lovely and just amazing when it comes to the flexibility required. Sex is not a linear, logical process of step 1, 2, 3. Have you ever had a massage therapist and you can tell they're just going through the motions, like, now I do this, and now I move your hand like this, and now we do this? Sex isn't like that. So it's all open, it's all improv. So you have that to your advantage with Parkinson's, believe it or not. Yes, you might be stiffer and maybe in the wrong places, but that's okay. So, you know, what can we use to our advantage? That's the question. How do you play to that? And once again, back to the mind, you know, the fantasies.
Yeah.
Back to the mind. I just want to jump in on that one. I agree with you completely, because I think that stress actually acts more on the libido than anything that we're talking about. And we're all under so much stress right now because of this pandemic. And so I think that we need to go a little easy on ourselves. And also, anything you can do to manage the stress is naturally going to then result in good things in the bedroom. And also, I think it's a great idea to bring in an expert, you know, just in many different areas. Yeah.
And bringing it up to your provider. If you're having actual dysfunction, it is not talked about enough in the exam room. So it's important. And I'm amazed at how many providers don't ask. But sexual health is a part of our health. We are a whole body. We are not just the air traffic control panel. So bring it up. If it's stressing you or you feel like it's impacting your relationship, it's important to talk about.
You know, I once had the fortune of having a house guest that was Dr. Ruth Westheimer, the sex therapist. And she was just so intrigued in the work that I did. And she was in San Francisco promoting 3 books. One was Sex and Teenagers, one was Sex and the Elderly, and one was My Life in Music, which is very unrelated.
Okay.
But she was so intrigued. She said, "You men," I used to be a headhunter, and she goes, "You know, what you do is finding other people jobs." She said, "Men in particular," she goes, if she was also promoting an article in Fortune magazine called The Sexual Recession. And this was right during the economic recession in 2008. And her comment was, what you men especially are, she says, you take away their jobs or you put job stress in their life, it's amazing how badly they perform in the bedroom, right?
Yeah.
And when she said that, she says, women are different than men in that sense. And it's a little sexist to say, because I know there are a lot of professional women who equally feel that you know, their careers also dictate their lives. But men very much, I think we're very driven by performance. And so it carries over into our relationships as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it's probably hardest for people who need to be in control all the time. Letting go of that idea or that illusion of control, as we all need to do in humanity in general, is helpful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody here have any issues with sleep where you don't sleep with your partner, you sleep in separate beds or anything?
I just don't sleep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So someone had said that they can't sleep with their partner, and it's because of sleep issues, and it's very sad. What are some things, I mean, what are some ideas to make that a little less sad? Where you're, probably spending, you still spend time in the bed together. Like I always say, are you still spending time in the bed together?
Mm-hmm.
You can still do that, even if you just don't sleep.
Yeah.
Even if it's not about sex, even if it's not about you're going to have sex that night, you just can still be intimate. You can still lie there together. You can still hug and snuggle. And when it's time to go to sleep, go to sleep. But I would love for those of you, Amy, it looks like you raised your hand. You don't sleep in the same bed. Like
I don't sleep at all.
Okay.
I play musical beds in the sense that I start off in the bed and I end up in the couch, and then I might end up in, something else. But and I think that's pretty standard again, not just with PD, but with aging as well. And but there's a lot of people who can't sleep with their partner because the partner snores or sort of, has all these other things. And so to me, it's just part of everything. And I do miss a good night's sleep. I can't remember the last time I felt refreshed and well slept. But as Heather said at the beginning, we don't really have the answers here. We're just sharing. So
come to us for more questions anytime.
Yeah.
May I
Exactly.
add something about that?
Yeah.
Yes.
I like to get my snuggle and touch and skin on skin time before bed. And I actually love sleeping alone. There's something romantic about sneaking over to your lover wherever they are,
Yeah.
and like kissing them and like loving them and making out with them and being like, good night, lover. And you go back to your bed.
Yeah.
Although I shuffle back to bed, not really too hot. But hey, you
being a teenager again. Yeah.
It's like you're kind of playing like I'm sneaking around, like, where's mom and dad?
Yeah.
Like, maybe, oh my God, are we gonna get caught here? It's like they've left us alone. There's no adults. But I like to sort of sneak in and make that into like a kind of a cool thing. Read Anais Nin, read Colette, read like the stuff that's really sensual, and play around a little bit. Put a wig on if you need to. Showing up and then go back to your space. Be like, see you in the morning, cutie. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
So you can make it fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So someone asked again about the mention when you have Parkinson's, when you're dating someone, and just to make sure, not sure if maybe they caught on a little bit later, but I think the consensus was in the group, as soon as possible, because it's going to happen, and it's an authentic way to really connect with somebody. And if they say no way, no how, then it's probably better that you found that out right away.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's got to be not right away, because you still have a little bit of the jockeying in the very beginning, but soon after that, if there's any interest in taking it any further, because otherwise you'd be lying to them and they'd be lying to you, right?
Yeah. Somebody said, is that scaring someone? Is that too much?
Good. Well, that's why you hold off a little bit in my book. Maybe even, in the first few hours, and then you pop it on as a surprise after the intrigue is there, right?
And well, some panel or some people watching have noted that this is sort of haunting them. Like, gosh, if I put myself out there, it's a very vulnerable position to begin with. And then also, if I start to like someone and we start to have a nice dialogue, and then I tell them and they ghost me, that's going to hurt too.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to say this, but that's going to happen. And it's not personal.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to add, I also want to add too that these conversations that are so difficult, there's so much fear to sort of jump off that cliff and start that conversation. But I've never regretted any difficult conversation once you do it. It's just trying to just sort of jump off that cliff and have that first, word. But once you do, you're going to be really glad that you did, even if the consequences are that the person doesn't want to date you anymore, because as Heather and everybody's been saying, that's not the person that you want to waste any time with. And so just there's a lot of fear involved in having honest conversations. And but when you get on the other side of them, you can just put another notch on your belt. Oh, I've had that one before. I've done that before. And then it makes you a little braver every time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is interesting. So one woman said that she was dating her now husband, and he actually didn't tell her for 9 months. And, she sounds like an amazing human being, because she said they worked through it and they eventually got married. But you can see both sides, right? He, like she said, I really understood. He really cared about the relationship. He wanted to make sure the relationship was going to happen, and was scared to tell her. But, luckily she was the right person for him, because he told her. And even though it was upsetting and maybe trust was broken for a little bit, she still stayed in there. So there are those people too. There are people who are going to stay that will surprise you. I think we hear that all the time with just even friendships. People will say, my friendships changed after I got Parkinson's. And some people, that they're not friends with anymore. And some people that they stuck around and they didn't expect them to stick around. So surprising, right?
I remember one time we were at the beach and I took my shirt off with my current girlfriend, and she saw for the first time, she saw my DBS neurotransmitter. And she said, "Oh my God, that's so sexy, right?" It's like, how would people say that, right?
And you're like, you're the one for me, right?
Yeah.
So of course I'm like treating like I'm the bionic man, right? But see, you just don't know, right? You just don't know how people are going to react. So you might as well get it out there. And I mean, that's going to be true whether or not you have, Parkinson's or you have depression or you have any other issues. It eventually will come out, right?
Mm-hmm.
As I've said before, we compare our insides to everyone else's outsides, particularly with social media and the way technology is moving so quickly today. We'll see like a news bite or a flash of a very highly curated and often filtered life that we're viewing from the outside. And we think, well, this person must have it all together. Are you kidding me? I don't even have pants on. So, I mean, let's just start there. Like, nobody knows what they're doing. So, we think people are watching us or judging us. No, they're not. They're judging themselves probably. Like that old funny thing where, dance like no one's watching, because they're not. They're looking at their phones or they're thinking about their own dance. They're worried about how they look. So to be so self-absorbed in that actually is an impediment to this whole process. So there's an opening that I think is really helpful. And to also, one more point I want to make about shame. The people who ghost you are feeling ashamed that they can't be there, and then you're feeling ashamed like there's something wrong with you, and the shame stuff happens, and no one really talks about that either. So that can also be a problem in all of this, not to be too complex, but that's a big problem. So yeah.
And I think also how we see ourselves is really important in how we perceive others. And so if the first thing we see in the mirror is Parkinson's disease, we have some work to do. And if that's the thing that you think that's all you're transmitting is Parkinson's disease, you need some self-work before you're ready to take on a partner. You know, there's so much more to you than Parkinson's disease, whether you've been diagnosed today or 20 years ago. We're all complex and interesting and broken and well and ill and healthy. You know, we're all those things, and Parkinson's is just a piece of that. So a partner with depth and complexity is going to admire that about you.
Yeah. I just wanted to read two comments that we got. They're great. Someone says, I'm 74 years old and I'm sitting here with my new boyfriend who is 76 years old. And I'm the one with Parkinson's. We are having a wonderful time and he knew right from the get-go.
Excellent.
And then another person said, I really appreciate your honesty and humor. I so want to hang out with you all. Well, you can, because we're going to be here every Thursday.
Yeah. Yeah.
That reminds me, I read that too just before you said that, Mel. That's what I was going to bring up. Thank you so much. I went to a support group locally and I was sitting around, and I'm the youngest one there, and I'm thinking, well, I'm doing them a favor by showing up, you know, my young guns. And I learned so much from these women. And at the end, this woman leans in and she goes, I have great sex with my boyfriend. Sometimes I even pee and he doesn't care. And I said, oh, aren't you going to buy me a drink before you start sharing this stuff? And she said, you know, I'm 82. I can say what I want. And I said, yes, you can. So, you know, it's all open.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. That's humor. It's humor. Yeah.
We got this, guys.
It's real.
It's just life. It's just sex. It's just relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knows what they're doing. It's okay. It's going to be okay. Have fun with it.
Yeah.
Have some fun.
Yeah.
Because you can't change it. You can't change it anyway. So you have to make the decision to be good with it. You just have to. Yeah.
Somebody asked, how do you deal with the emotional side of things? My response when I'm off is significantly different than when I was on before, which can throw my partner off significantly.
I feel terrible about that. I usually end up saying, gosh, I really overreacted, or, hey, I'm sorry, are you okay? And what can I do to support you?
Yeah, the tears are so quick to come for me. My kids will say that's not Parkinson's, but it is quicker, much quicker than it used to be. And so my reactions are bigger and visibly look bigger. Now that's hard for partners. So I think sharing, sometimes I'll say, the tears are just my tears. I'm not feeling as bad as I look. They're just running down my face. Just give me a minute, or, you know.
Well, it's the same with facial masking, right? I actually feel bigger than you think I'm feeling.
Yeah. So asking the question, my dad had a lot of facial masking. So my dad had Parkinson's, and so I would ask him, Dad, are you happy? Are you smiling right now? And he said, I'm smiling so big, Kat. And that made me feel good. And so asking people, it's okay to ask, or Dad, are you feeling sad right now? Or, you know, it's back to that communication and checking in with one another.
And back to what sort of Mel touched on, a number of us have touched on, loving yourself. Take care of yourself. You know, go get the new underwear, whatever it is that, I mean, that's a material thing, but like do that inner work so that you feel like you have something to give, because you do. And then you'll find that love sort of interplay.
Love all that you are and all that you can do. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Great.
Somebody asked about dealing with cramps. I
Yeah,
try
it's
to
like
just
dealing with
anticipate them.
dystonia, cramping during sex.
Yeah.
How do you deal
So,
with that?
you know, I can often feel cramping coming, so I try to shift positions. Like, okay, stand by. You know, I'm just going to get up and run for a minute. It's okay. I'm good. Okay, I'm better. Just a minute.
It's all air traffic control.
It's all air traffic control, but I try to anticipate before I'm in full on locked up mode, because that's just a little less fun. Let's face it, just in general. So, and very distracting. You know, a lot of the red panel goes off on this side and the other panel can't catch up. So I just try to be in tune with what's coming on, and a good sense of humor. So.
Great.
Hydration.
All right. Well, I think we got everybody's question. This is a great session. I'm so glad that you guys came, and that all of you were here to ask questions and participate. This is really helpful. We hope that you'll join us every month. We're going to be here every third Thursday of the month at the same time. Everyone says, LOL, this is fun. This has been awesome. Thanks. Well, thank you to everybody. If you have any questions that you want to send, I'm going to put my... I always forget to do this and then can't type and speak at the same time.
Well, thank you for this time that you've given us. Thanks for trusting us. I hope everybody watching realizes that she handed us an open mic and Parkinson's.
So much stressed.
Well, we all agreed that we would do this if this were the HBO of panels, where it wasn't censored and it was just spontaneous.
That's right. Young onset, unfiltered.
Unfiltered.
New reality TV show.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you, everybody. My email's there. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. If you have registered for this series, you will get all of the reminder emails right before, so you don't have to register again. And we're going to be back next in August, right? Okay, awesome. I don't know what month it is anymore. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
all.
Bye. Mhm.